Hello, everyone, and welcome to New Direction. My name's Jay Izzo, and oh man, again, it's another great show. Oh my gosh. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. No. Join us, please. No fear. Dr. Mary Poffenroth, book, Brave New You, Strategies, Tools, and Neurohacks to Live More Courageously Every Day. Best book I've ever read on fear and courage, period. Best book. Fun read, great read, insightful read, smart read, brilliantly written. She has the uncanny ability to take the biology of our brain and actually make it fun and interesting. Trust me, folks, I have taught brain anatomy and function. It is where my students used to roll their eyes in the back of their head and hope that they could stick a fork in their eye and get an ambulance to get out of the class. I'm just telling you, she's made it fun. It's interesting. It's so good. Folks, let's talk about fear for a second, right? I know that we all don't really want to admit that we fear. I am one of those people, okay? I admit it. I'm a big statured man. I try to put on my bravado the best that I can. Fact of the matter is, if I am being completely honest, I fear. And you're going to get to hear some of what I really am afraid of, right? I have been in situations where I've learned how to handle my fear quite easily, but then there's other situations where my fear, I don't handle it well. Right? People will say, well, how did you get through that? I mean, I would be so afraid. And that wasn't because I trained for it and I worked on my resilience training and my attitude and my effort training and understanding how I can respond to things. But then there are areas in my life where I'm not so good. And I think we can all say that. And then there's some of you out there who quite honestly live out of fear. Well, Dr. Poffenroth wants to help you there too, right? And then those of you who are in complete denial, all right? And let's remind ourselves what denial means. It means don't even know I am lying, okay? That's the acronym for denial. You're lying to yourself, and we're going to talk to you too, because it's okay, because it is part of who we are. It's how we're wired, and it has service great purposes. So let me do a favor for you. I want to introduce you to Dr. Mary Poffenroth. Dr. Mary Poffenroth is a biopsychologist, fear, courage researcher, and first-generation college student. Began her career in astrobiology in the unit at NASA. You may have heard of it, Ames Moffett Field, supporting payload experiments for the STS-107, the 28th flight of Space Shuttle Columbia. Backed by one of the world's largest publishers, Mary's first mass market book, Brave New You. This one. Strategies, Tools, and Neurohacks to Live More Courageously Every Day. It's Hatchet Publishers, by the way. You need to give them credit. Offers readers an innovative solution for moving past stifling everyday fear and into a life filled with brave choices that result in transformational outcomes. She holds a doctorate in psychology and 3 master's degrees. A little ambitious, wouldn't you think? I think so.
I collect like Pokemon cards, right? I just collect them all.
Oh, yeah, your Pokemon cards. Okay, she does that too. Great. Okay, great. All right, we all feel smaller. Biology, psychology, science communication has taught nearly 20,000 university students. Biology faculty at San Jose State University since 2007. Salzburg Global Fellow. She's spoken at TEDx in London, Harvard, and South by Southwest, Inbound, and her work has been featured in legacy media outlets such as Time, Forbes, Science, Entrepreneur, Wall Street Journal. Just look her up. She's all over the place. And we get a chance to welcome her to the show. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome for the first time ever, Dr. Mary Poffenroth. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Jay. And I'm going to need to hire you as like my hype man so that you can do like all of my intros and then, just get like the crowd really pumped up. So
yes, let's do that. It's a small charge, small fee. It's not a big fee. You just have to, pay for the flight, where I stay, a few meals, and a little extra money. And I'm there for you. I can do that for you, Mary. I promise you I can. Let's start right in to chapter 1. It's called Reimagining Fear and Courage. Love the title. With part 1, it's divided in 3 parts. Part 1 is Reimagining Fear and Courage. Chapter 1 has a title that I love, but it's also a little disturbing. Fear is your ally. Oh, Dr. Poffenroth, have we lost our mind here that fear is our ally? Help us. Explain that to us, please.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like a center aspect of my work and why I was drawn to do this kind of work is that we have such a dysfunctional relationship with this totally natural experience of being afraid. Right. We have demonized it in the way that we talk about it. We've made it something to be, ashamed of, even to like yourself, that, oh, I shouldn't have been so, afraid of this, that, or the other. And it does no service to us and the life that we say that we want to live until we start to change how we see this totally normal human experience. We change how we talk about it, both to ourselves and to people in our families and our communities and our organizations, and start to use it as a tool instead of just pretending like either it doesn't exist or letting it ruin kind of your life. And when I say this kind of idea of being an ally is that once you start to practice with these, kind of paradigm shifts, you can start to see, okay, well, now I'm recognizing, and we'll get into like the RAIN method at some point, I'm sure.
We
we're gonna do it
will.
all.
That is going to be the last segment of the show is the RAIN method. I promise you that will happen.
Right. But like recognizing that, okay, this sensation that I'm feeling, whether it's physical or, mental, this is telling me that something's going on, and digging a little bit deeper. And if it's something that you have wanted to do or that you are pushing yourself and striving towards, you're going to feel afraid. And that's okay, because that means that you are on that growth edge. And that is where, like the magic of having the neurohacks to support you through that discomfort so that you don't shy away from those opportunities, that you don't shy away from saying yes to the next big step, even though it feels kind of icky sometimes.
Three main sources of fear: biological, cultural, and personal. Let's just give a quick overview of those, because this is going to run through a theme throughout the entire book of dealing with biological, cultural, and personal fear. So walk us through our three tiers of the main sources of fear.
Yeah, well, the biology part is going to be what it is, right? I try to, even though I'm a scientist, I wanted this book to really speak to people that enjoy science or maybe not enjoy science. We have a lot of people that are afraid of science, and that happens all the time. That I have students coming in.
Is there some sort of phobia? Do we have a phobia name for that? I'm trying to think in psychology. I'm trying to come up with a science phobia.
Yeah, because I don't work in like the clinical client aspect.
Yeah.
I don't know all the phobias, but I'm sure that there's some kind of name for it, right?
Yeah, there's got to be a fear of science.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I know people.
Usually,
I know people that way. Science, fear of math, fear of science. Yeah.
And they were taught that, right?
Right.
And no one's born being afraid of science, but probably in a really formative early age, they were told either they're not good at it or it's not for them. How many times, oh, well, you're a girl, you're not good at math. And so you internalize those things, and then you are afraid because you try it, it's hard. You're not a perfect star the first time you do something. You're like, oh, see, they were right. Okay. And then it just turns into this big beastie. And, but I wanted the book to bring some of that science so that we can start to disconnect the shame from the sensation and emotion and experience of a fear arousal response, right? And to give people permission to not be ashamed of this. It's, like, we're not ashamed of breathing. We're not ashamed of, having to go to the bathroom. That's just being a human. But we wrapped up this emotion with so much drama that I want to kind of tease that out. And then the personal aspect, it's going to be something that is, really clear to most people, of the things that you are, because the things I'm afraid of are going to be different than the things you're afraid of, because we have very different journeys. And even if we had, let's say in a family that all shared one particular experience, they're all going to experience that event differently and going to, walk away with, different types of reactions to it. So diving into that personal experience of what you're afraid of, and that is going to change, right? One of the stories I use in the book of, in the gondola, and I was never afraid of heights until I was, like riding this gondola up Mont Blanc and totally almost had like a panic attack. in different seasons of our life, right? And kind of giving yourself some grace to know that just because you're afraid of something now, it doesn't mean it's going to be forever. And that fear is going to be something that changes. And our world is constantly changing. We live in a chaotic environment. And, especially in the last 5 years, I feel we keep turning up the chaos dial. It's like, whoo, okay, no, we're at a 10. Okay. Oh, I didn't know the dial went to 11. And so, having tools to help navigate through these things is really also at the heart of the book. And then societal, of the messages that we are told, that we're brought up on, that we get from friends, family, teachers, media, the stories that we consume, all these messages we carry with us. And sometimes they're, an overt teaching that you kind of keep at the top of your mind, but a lot of it's more insidious around, again, this shame we associate with being afraid, or that it's a weakness, or that is a moral failing to be afraid. And trying to have that shift in even just how we talk to people in our own life can have really profound transformations for people in families and communities.
One of the things that you say, and this leads us into, this is still chapter 1, everybody. So if you're joining, and by the way, thank you everybody for joining us live. We appreciate all of you. And feel free to ask your questions while you're watching us. Dr. Poffenroth will be happy to answer them along the way. One of the things, you have a little subtitle here, is Neurohack Your Way into New Habits and Behaviors. And you say we'll never be able to turn off our primal fear reaction. And you have in parentheses, we wouldn't want to, but we can change the way we respond to fear. This seems like this is going to be a theme when we get into the crux of challenging fear and the RAIN method, about we can change the way we respond to fear. Give us a little more there.
Yeah, well, it's, when we look at kind of like the human experience of fear, the first way that you can start to delineate and kind of decipher which one that you're feeling is, we have, a fictional fear, or we have a factual fear. So, and this is a term that I use that I found that was better than what is in the scientific literature. In scientific literature, they call it clean and dirty fear, but I felt that kind of wording was just so
awkward.
Like, yeah, like, oh, you got dirty fear? Like, what? Can we not? Like, can some scientists just take a marketing class at least once, so you're not calling things dirty fear? It's, so I thought a better way to name it is, fictional and factual fear. So we'll start with the easy one. So factual fear, that is going to be something that everyone in the vicinity is going to experience in that same point of reality. So let's say I use the example of, you're walking down a busy street. I used to live in London, and I lived in South Kensington, and Kensington High Street was where all the shops would be, and super busy. And let's say there's this kind of like car backfire sound, right? It's a really big sound. Everyone heard it. Everyone stops what they're doing to pay attention to this big sound. And their brain is very quickly deciding, do I need to do anything about it? And the brain says, all right, that was a benign sound. Okay. And we move on, right? We're not reminiscing about, oh, that car that backfired today, it was really traumatic, because nothing happened. It was something we all shared that experience, and nothing needed to be done. And so we just went on with our day. So we're not going to ruminate about those types of things. And then fictional fear can have a grain of truth, like all good stories, but it doesn't happen in the right now. It's either going to happen in the past, or something that, you're worrying about that could be in the future, but it's not happening right now. And it's not something that is going to be equally shared in, the people that are around you. So this is where we really have the most power to influence, is on those fictional types of fears, because in the moment when you're experiencing a factual fear, your body knows what to do, right? It's going to quickly process. I'm going to have my senses pick up as much information as I can. Then I'm going to quickly decide, do I need to do anything about this? And if I don't, I just keep on moving with my day. But if I do, then I'm going to act, or, that's the classic, like fight or flight type of reaction. And then you deal with it. And then you keep going on with your day. So when we start to think about how we can kind of change that relationship, it's going to be with those fictional fears. Right? And after that big, long diatribe, I forgot what the original question was.
No, it was just
So I
that.
got the fictional fear, I got the factual fear, but then the home question, I think I just lost the thread on that.
No, we're good. I just talking about that we can choose how we respond to it.
Oh, yes. Yep. Exactly. So that's going to be, like that choice in the moment when you are either worrying about something that happened last week, last year, last decade, or you're worrying about something that is going to happen but may never because it's in the future. That's where we have those choices to respond differently and be able to move through those sensations more quickly so that we can get on with our day, that we can get on with our life, because no one enjoys feeling
Mm.
that overwhelming sense of dread. Now, we like some scary things like, haunted houses during Halloween, or, scary movies. And, we can talk about that too, of why the human brain likes that. But if that's that real deep, gut wrenching anxiety or dread, no one enjoys that. It feels awful. So, how do we move through those sensations so that we can do the scary thing? Because success is always going to be on the other side of that scary thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, our perceptions, lie to us quite frequently,
Mm-hmm.
where we become afraid. We see fear because of how we perceive something. You and I are acquainted with illusory correlation, right? Where we correlate. I think fear is very much the same way, where there's an illusion of something out there that we correlate, and we can turn that into a fear because we feel like, oh, well, this is associated with something else that I've either think I've experienced before, I believe is true, or is part of my perceptual person. And then we turn that into fear. I mean, for me, I know that, my fear of shame, and I have a fear of shame, and which is ironic, I think, in a way, because shame is based in fear.
Yeah.
And so, but I don't want to be embarrassed. I fear embarrassment.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that really, but I know that's in my head, and I know it's my perception, and I've created this illusory correlation between that. If I do something that might cause embarrassment, somehow it's going to make me less than, or it's going to knock me down. And it's simply not true. It's just a human thing that I did. It was silly, right? It wasn't intentional, and it's embarrassing, but I fear it, which sometimes keeps me away from doing certain things because I don't want to put myself in that position. But it's all my perception at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And choosing to respond to it differently is not always easy.
No. Oh, I didn't say all this work was going to be easy, but a life well lived is never easy.
Right.
So the philosophers tell us.
And it's true. It's true. I mean, I think the thing that people have to understand is that when, as you discuss fear in Brave New You, as you discuss it, and you start seeing that, man, I got work to do here. And I have to be dedicated to it. And we're going to probably talk about it, but I have to practice it.
Yeah.
And that seems to be a critical piece of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I use the kind of comparison of working out at a gym, or doing a, being like a professional dancer or a professional athlete, right? They can have innate talent to be really good at basketball, but you don't get to be in the NBA by practicing once a year. Right? You gotta keep doing. You gotta keep sharp. You gotta always be exploring new methodologies to recover and to stay lean, and so much goes into being good at anything. And because fear is such a natural part of how our brain works, it's there to keep us alive. And coming back to your story around feeling afraid of being ashamed, right, or embarrassed, that is inherent to how the amygdala works. So the amygdala is going to be, the almond-shaped structures in the brain that is, if you want to think about it in really simple terms, kind of like the center of our fear arousal experience. And it's very ancient in how, and I do anthropomorphize, which is also, I give a little caveat in the book that it's just easier in the English language to anthropomorphize these things. But the amygdala is going to be kind of like binary, like, on, off. Are we afraid? And we just want to stay safe. And whatever that safe thing means, it wants to force you to do that. And part of that feeling of, ugh, I don't like how this feels, is trying to keep you in the bed cave of safety, right? Trying to, like, because it's a scary world out there. I'm not going out there. And practicing moving through those sensations, and also having, things like the neurohacks to get you through those sensations quicker, allows you to make those harder choices, but in an easier fashion, and to get through those sensations more quickly, because again, no one enjoys that kind of, icky feeling that comes up. And so having these tools that you're going to practice, especially before something really big happens, right? You want to practice, like, you don't want to just start practicing these neurohacks before you do something. Like, you're going to get on the TED stage and you've never had given a public talk before. You don't want to practice something new right before then. You want to practice on lower risk stuff, so you feel really confident that your toolbox is full of everything to support you. And that in itself gives you the empowerment to go and do hard stuff.
Her name is Dr. Mary Poffenroth. The book, Brave New You. So good. So good. Strategies, tools, and neurohacks to live more courageously every day. You're listening to her here on A New Direction. Hey, folks, Zoundy, ultimate game changer, authors, publishers, professionals in the audiobook space. Listen, there's a lot of audio places to put your book out, and you can listen to books from, certainly. But let me tell you the difference for me as a published author of several books, and it's this. I can give away my book for free to my audience, and I can connect with them. I know exactly who's read my book, and I can actually go back and forth with them with emails, because I get that information, and I can ask them questions about what they enjoyed and what they want to learn. The book, Zoundy, is outstanding. I'm telling you, I love it. I even have free codes. I can give away my book on Facebook, Instagram, all the platforms. So listen, I really highly suggest you check out Zoundy, Zoundy. If you would like to, it's a special offer right here from A New Direction. Just go to zoundy.com/J and then use the code JAY25 at zoundy.com/J. Use the code JAY25 and you'll unlock special savings. And Linda Craft Team Realtors. Listen, our original sponsors, they're the transition experts. And you go, what do you mean that's real estate? Yeah, but think about it. Every place you've ever lived has been a transition in life. They know how to take the stress out of that part of that life transition. Take the fear out of it is what they do. It's what Dr. Poffenroth would say to me. Check them out. They're so good. Been around 40 plus years. Top of the game. Just go to lindacraft.com, LINDACRAFT.com. And we're back here on A New Direction with my friend. I'm going to call her friend because I feel like I read her book. I know her so well already. I'm going to call her friend, Dr. Mary Poffenroth. I get to call her Mary. It's so good. It makes me feel
I'm here for it.
Yeah,
Hi, new bestie.
Yeah, hey, bestie. BFFs. It's what we are. Brave New You, Strategies, Tools, Neurohacks to Live More Courageously Every Day is the book. Get yourself a copy. It's so good. Chapter 2, Fearless is a Facade. And you open up with a statement here that I think most people would find challenging, which you do quite often in this book, is challenge us. And that is, courage is not the opposite of fear. What? What? Explain that, Dr. P.
Oh my gosh. So one of the things that just drives me crazy is not only do we have a dysfunctional way of communicating with each other about fear, but the only kind of options is being told to just be fearless, which doesn't exist. Like, it's biologically nearly impossible. There's a few cases of a really rare experience where like the amygdala has been damaged and the person can't, but it's so minuscule, and you don't want to get rid of all fear, because then you're going to be doing really stupid stuff. Like, all of our ancestors that has gone before our individual person to be, here right now, had a healthy amount of fear to not die, so that they could grow up and pass on those genes to the next generation. And I am very thankful. Thank you, ancestors. And if they just had no fear, and you're like, yeah, I don't care about my safety, I'll go do that, they're not going to live very long. And so we don't want to get rid of it, but we don't want it to run our lives, right? So we need tools. And one of the reasons that I came to this work is that there is some things in clinical psychology. And again, I'm not a clinical psychologist because I don't see patients. I'm an academic. But with kind of, professional support for actual anxiety disorders, and let's say an actual like phobia, that's going to be very different than just the normal run of the mill fears that all of us are facing sometimes daily, right? That there's parents afraid to drop their kids off at school because of school shootings. There are a million things to be afraid of that are very real. And the advice that we give to people on how to navigate through this is be fearless. Cool. That's so unhelpful. That's not doing me. That's just making me even more ashamed because I assume that everyone else has their stuff together and it's only me that is like feeling this way. So I'm not going to talk about it because no one talks about it except for, to be fearless, and it's on mugs and t-shirts and, or be a fearless, like boss babe, or I don't know. It's so unhelpful. And it doesn't, it doesn't exist. It just makes you feel
Right.
even worse about yourself because you
Yeah.
think everyone else is achieving this thing that is unachievable.
Right. Well, by the way, I've never seen Fearless Boss Babe, but I mean, if that does exist, great. I've never seen that cup yet, but
I'm sure Etsy has it, right? Etsy has
I'm sure it does. I'm open to looking at it for sure. Love to have one right in front of me here. I'll exchange it with my Coach J mug that sits in front of me. You talk about we're afraid of being afraid, and I think that's so true. And we go to the extent, and I love this. This is, again, one of the many things of the book. You say oftentimes we use the word stress instead of fear. It's not even an emotion. It's not even an emotion.
Yeah.
Dr. P. So talk to us about using the word stress, why we're doing that, using the word stress versus being honest and going fear.
Yeah. People don't like to use the F word, right? People, they're like, oh, like I'm fine with the other 4-letter F word, but dropping F bombs all day, but not the word fear, because again, we've wrapped so much shame around it. They just pretend like, oh, I don't feel fear. So instead, we have created this euphemism around stress, right? And we have this like stress badge of courage, where if you and I were sitting in an office and we worked for the same company, and you come up to my desk, you're like, oh, Mary, I'm so stressed. And I'm like, oh my God, me too. Right. And then if we dug a little deeper, like, why are you stressed? You're like, oh, well, like my kid's like, like really sick. And you just would go through all of these things that are actually fear responses. Right. But you're not going to say, oh, I'm really dreading that my son has had a cough for 3 weeks. You're just going to say, oh, I'm really stressed because, Billy's had a cough for 3 weeks. And then we don't really get any deeper because we just put it all in this, big closet we call stress and shove it to the back, like those white elephant gifts you got during a Christmas party last year, right? With your Bath and Body Works. And you just close the door and you never deal with it. And that's not going to be healthy. It's also not going to empower you when you need those really strong courage muscles to do the big stuff that you want to do in life.
Yes. And yet, what most business people, and, this is a business show for the most part, but we deal with life because I personally believe as a business coach that there's no business problems. There's just personal problems that infect your business. And I believe that fear is one of those personal problems that will infect your business. Yeah. And so a lot of times you'll see people, and I know them very well, that will use the word stress instead of fear because it just makes them feel better. But at the underneath all that, it's still fear.
Yeah. Yep. And I work a lot with organizations, and I work with leaders because I'm going to give you this, famous example. Ed Catmull, who, of Pixar, and he wrote a book, Creativity Inc. And in that book, he says the word fear like 78 times because he is very adamant that when he was at the helm, and they were trying to make something that had never existed. He's like, of course we are going to be afraid. We're trying to do something that's never been done, and that's scary. But we're not going to pretend like it's not scary.
Mm.
But we're also not going to let that fear of failure, fear of success, fear of all of it, that we're not going to be able to do it, fear of the work that's going to be needed for it. We're just going to acknowledge it, and him as a leader being very overt, saying, yeah, I know this is scary, but we're going to do it together, and I'm going to lead you through it. And I'm not afraid of telling you that I feel it too.
Mm.
And that builds instant trust with a team. That changes the dynamic so that he's empowering his team to feel the fear and do it anyway. And that is a completely different leadership style than leading with fear as a tool, right? Like fear mongering, or you better work harder, otherwise you're going to lose your job. That's not, like that's not the kind of fear you should be having, in your workplace. But showing your team that you can be a strong leader and have the ability to both hold space for being afraid of something really big and hard and still do it, I think is incredibly powerful.
Well, I think micromanaging is fear.
Yeah. I fear of control. Yep. And that's our two buckets. So, our fear of not being enough and fear of losing control are the two general buckets of where all of our human fears can kind of go into.
Mm-hmm.
And micromanaging, which I can't deal.
I can't either.
Oh my God, I
That's why I
can't.
do what I do, because I can't do it.
Oh my goodness. I don't want to micromanage, and I don't want to be micromanaged. It's
Yeah.
just awful, but it's that want and need for total control, and it has to be their way or the highway. Like, nah.
Well, and this is probably a good time to agree, even though it's not in this chapter, it's a good time to talk about the fear of losing control. I think so often, and you make the point in the book, that people don't realize just how afraid they are when they're trying to control everything.
Yeah.
When they're trying to control every aspect of their business, every aspect of their life, and they want to control everybody around them, it's really fear underneath all that.
Yeah.
I mean, and I don't know, and I think you can help, navigate these waters with me, and you've navigated waters on a banana boat, so I understand that. It's a story in the book. You'll have to read it for yourself.
in the Adriatic during a cyclone.
Yeah. So, yeah, Island of Ease. Okay. Anyway, but people want to think that if they're in control, that limits fear, but actually being in control is actually a demonstrate of a lot of fear.
Yeah.
Help us work through those control. We got some control freaks out there. Let's just be honest. I know some of them, and they're self-admitted control freaks.
Yeah.
And they don't know that it's really fear. Help them, please, Dr. P.
Yeah. Well, the big first step is being open to shifting your perception of yourself and shifting your perception of how you see the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
And until someone is ready to do that, you're going to hit a brick wall, right? And once they have the ability, like, okay, I'm open to some introspection, or I'm open to maybe digging a little deeper on these things to see what is that actual motivation, especially if harmful things are coming out of it. Like if you are a leader or a business owner that is so hyper fixated on controlling every single aspect that nothing gets done, then hopefully at that point you see, okay, there's a problem here. Now, having the courage to say that problem is me is not in everyone's wheelhouse, right? And then starting to really peel back the layers of, is there an event or messaging that you got at some point that drives you to do these particular behaviors when they don't serve you, right? And if you spend all of your time micromanaging everyone on your team and you're not able to move the needle on any type of goals, whether those are personal or professional, then something has to give, right? Something has to change. And taking those steps is something that takes a lot of courage, right? I think that, for some people, they might have this paradigm shift because of a singular event. That something happened to kind of like force that shift. Maybe they're being forced into it because, right now, everything is so much in flux across every vertical in the professional world that if you aren't able to adapt and change quickly, you are not going to survive. That's just how it is. It's, it's innovate or die. And, unless you're like in the business that things don't change much, like plumbing, right? It's like, if you're a good plumber, AI is not going to really come for you just yet. But if you're in, different types of, if you're an electrician, we're still doing the electricity like we always have, until that changes, but it could change very quickly. And having that ability to be flexible, to adapt, to take in new information, like the show that we're doing right now, and act upon it, is going to be that thing that sets people up for success. And it's going to be the difference for people that are not successful in the future, that they can't adapt, that they can't change, and they can't innovate because they're so stuck in that cage of either I'm perfect and everyone else is broken, or stuck in the cage of I need to have control over everything all the time. Otherwise, everything's going to go to hell in a handbasket. Right? They're going to have a really tough time in this constantly changing landscape.
This old behaviorist, okay, because this old behaviorist, when he was in graduate school, studied under B.F. Skinner's last student. So he's got this behaviorist here. So I'm going to use a term here. Oftentimes, people who want control or have to have control have been reinforced because they've been successful under control, and yet it's still disguised in fear.
Yeah.
And that's a problem.
Yeah. Until and I mean, it's hard to make changes in ourselves, especially as adults, right? So until they start to see negative repercussions from that behavior, it's not going to change. But I think that, as everyone is starting to ponder, how do I stay relevant in my industry? Continue to be successful in whatever that industry is. I truly believe it's going to have to be with adaptability.
Yeah. You got to iterate.
Yep.
Right. We got to be agile. Quickly, people always ask this question of me when I'm coaching them. I get it regularly. Is courage learned, or are you born with it?
I think that everyone is born with the full spectrum of human emotions, right? It's through how we're brought up, who are our caretakers, on how we grow into those emotions and how we process them, or how we communicate about them. And we don't teach these things in school. So it has to be who your family unit is, whatever that looks like. For me, I was raised in a household where positive emotions were great, negative emotions were not allowed. And that's why I went into studying emotions, because I was like, man, I am crap at just feeling or communicating about my emotions. And that's what drew me to science, because science is not supposed to be about the person's emotions. It's about the data. So I can look, I got, speaking about like rewarded, I got rewarded for being unemotional in my work. But I knew that there was this whole kind of rainbow of experiences that I was only living in black and white. And that was because of the way that I was raised. Now, other people that were raised differently are going to have a different kind of, starting point as an adult, but it's not something, with neuroplasticity, and it's not something you can't improve upon. As long as you're drawing breath, you can, you can always improve on these things. And I feel that courage is a muscle, right? It's a muscle that we all have. And it's a muscle that we can train to get stronger. And then when we start to train it, because again, like, we're all going to have different things that we're afraid of. When we start to train it to be stronger in some aspects of our life, the courage muscle doesn't go away just because it's a different, type of fear. So if we are working on, let's say, our fear of, talking with people that are strangers, at a networking thing. If we're working on that and we're getting stronger on fighting that fear, that strength and courage is going to bleed over into other parts of our life. And just like you're, going to get better glutes by doing all of those squats, you're just going to like pump up your courage muscle by just, no one likes squats. I mean, but you got to do it if you want a nice looking butt. So it's just, you got to get in there, get your courage squats, and then like you'll see the benefits, in many different aspects, both professionally and personally.
First time on the show we've ever, if you want to ever have heard, if you want to have a nice butt, do squats. First time ever, but we're really great.
Everything.
The first time, and only from Dr. Mary Poffenroth, author of this great, outstanding book, Brave New You: Strategies, Tools, and Neurohacks to Live More Courageously Every Day. You're listening to her here on A New Direction. Hey, folks, Zoundy, I love talking about him. Great sponsor. Listen, if you're an author in the audiobook space, I just want to tell you something. There's an advantage. By the way, if you're listeners, check out Zoundy, ZOUNDY.com. There's books on there too as well. But if you want to actually engage with your readers, Zoundy is really the only way to do it. Get an email, give out books for free. You're going to do an event. I'm speaking at an event coming up here in July, right? I'm going to have hundreds of people at the event. I'm going to give away my book, the audiobook, for free to all of them. I'm going to be able to engage with the emails and talk with them about what they like, didn't like, give me ideas for my next book, et cetera, so forth. I highly recommend it. Check out Zoundy.com. And don't just go Zoundy.com. Go Zoundy.com/J so you can get some special offers. Just put in J25, JAY25, Zoundy.com/J, JAY25 to get special savings. Also, Linda Craft Team Realtors. Listen, a lot of real estate websites out there. I think LindaCraft.com is the best. Am I biased? Of course I am. I fully admit that. But here's what I love about it. It's not just that you can find listings and homes for sale and all the regular things you can find, but how about that they had a child psychologist write how to move with children, or the veterinarian that writes how to move with your pet, vendors that they recommend and have worked with for decades. Folks, it's just a complete website. Check it out, lindacraft.com. You're going to love them. Buy, sell your home. Check it out. It's LINDACRAFT.com. And we're back here with Dr. Mary Poffenroth, Brave New You: Strategy, Tools, Neurohacks to Live More Courageously Every Day. I hope you're having as much fun as I am doing this with you, because I am truly enjoying it with you.
This has been such like a great conversation of digging deeper into these themes, which is what I want the book to really be. I want it to be useful, something actionable, something that you're going to laugh and be entertained, but also to start a conversation in households, in organizations, among friends over mimosa brunch, so that we can start to take the teeth out of the dysfunctional way that we've interacted with this totally normal human emotion.
Very popular. I'm not going to say it's repopularized, because when I was in graduate school, attachment styles, Dr. Ainsworth was doing her research on this, have come back into being. And I think it's important that we at least spend a little bit of time, because we could spend an entire hour on attachment styles and fear. But I do want to talk about them, because it's a big deal. More and more books are being read about the attachment styles. Let's just talk about attachment styles just briefly, and how fear plays a role in our attachment style. You ready to roll with that?
Yeah. And I do agree. Like, this is as you know, the meat and potatoes around psychology in general, that because human brains are complex, and we as humans, our experiences are complex, and psychology is something that we all experience, but we study from a very different way than you would study, let's say, cancer biology, where you're able to see the cells and you're able to say, look, that cell reproduced itself at this point in time. Okay, that's a little bit easier than trying to unravel the mysteries of the human mind. And people are going to have those distinct camps that they're like, okay, I am in this theory. I like positive psychology, right? And then, like, for me, I'm in the camp of positive psychology, that we're not broken, we just need to optimize. And the more traditional old school style of psychology was, oh, we only deal with things that are broken, and then we need to fix your brokenness. And it's kind of, you have to find what really resonates for you. And for me, it's about human optimization over trying to see us as broken dolls that need extra glue.
And these attachment styles are pretty cool when you start looking at because it embraces our introduction to the world as babies.
Yeah.
And moves us on, right? And so we have that that secure attachment style, which, by the way, healthy outlook on fear, we don't have to have it. But then we've got three that we see quite frequently, because I don't think there's very many of us that had a truly secure attachment style. I think we probably fall into the other three, which is the anxious attachment style, the avoidance attachment style, or the disorganized attachment style. And let's talk about the anxious just for a minute.
Yeah.
Grasp on too tightly, right? Fear of abandonment, right? The anxious.
Yep.
Right. How do we break that? If you're
I think that, the first, and this is kind of why it's in the book, is to recognize that these are even in existence, right? And to start looking back at your patterns of relationships. And, our relationship with our caretaker as an infant was our first relationships, right? So as we're developing, they're setting that stage for how we're going to interact going forward. And especially if you see a pattern in your adult relationships, whether those are with friends, or with like a romantic partner, and you start to see that you're doing the same things over and over again and not getting good outcomes, then you want to kind of dig deeper of, all right, so what can I do about this? Because it's really painful to have this experience that you're either running after someone that's running away from you, or you're somebody that feels suffocated by their partner, or, and digging deeper into that allows us to not just have the opportunity to examine our own choices and behaviors and thoughts around this, but have those conversations with either people that we're romantically involved with or close friends. You don't want to have it with just a random dude at the bar, but those people that we want to put the emotional labor into can really have a profound effect on the closeness and bonding of that relationship. Right. And to also remove some of, I don't want to say like responsibility, because we're all responsible,
Right.
for our actions, but to start to see, okay, well, here's they're not excuses, but they're reasons why I'm like this. And if I know this going into a situation, and if I can notice it in myself, or if I have a trusted friend or trusted partner that can also notice it, then we can start off from such a different place than just reacting to that really old wound. And it saves so much just energy and like trying to avoid that soul crushing experience of when we don't understand ourselves, and the person that we want to understand us can't, because we're not really communicating what we don't know. And what the first step is just seeing, okay, if you had to look back on your life, what would be out of these kind of the one that resonates most? For me, I definitely am both like the hot and the cold. So I'm going to be like the disorganized. And it's not always, oh, I'm one way with one person, one way with another. It's with like the same person. Sometimes I'll feel like I'm being like clingy and being like, no, I need to hold on really tight. And then the next day I'm running for the hills. I'm like, okay, I need to get on a plane. I'm going to go to Egypt. And it has to be really confusing for partners, especially if they have a different attachment style. But being able to communicate that helps to remove some of that like shame and blame game. Right. And especially if you know the attachment style of your partner, then it gives us that deeper sense of empathy for how they're reacting to it. Because many times, as you know, in a situation, we're not always reacting to the thing that's happening right now. Sometimes when we get a really big emotional reaction, it could be something that we are pulling energy from that happened years ago or had nothing to do with the person that's right in front of us. But the person right in front of us is getting the heat. Is
Right.
getting like the I do this.
Yeah. No, I get it.
I try to, but like notice, but you can't always. But again, like it's the practice thing.
Yeah. Let's move to chapter 8.
Yeah.
Set yourself free with the RAIN method. I tried to do that with my, radio voice. There is what I
Yeah.
did.
We should get those, like, those old timey metal things for the thunder and lightning, like the sound. Yeah.
Yeah, we should do that. It's okay. I need to put that on my little board here that I can add that in. RAIN method.
Yeah.
Let's talk through this, because this is part of your genius. And the last 5 or so minutes that we have to go here, let's talk through the RAIN method if we can, because this is where you're going to help people set free from their fear and gain more courage and bravado.
Yeah. And before I jump in, I do want to let all of your listeners know that they can get a copy of this info card that I'm going to go through with the RAIN method, as well as digital copies of the neurohacking quick win cards on the website hellobravenewYou.com. So just type in hellobravenewYou.com, and there's no sign in, no sign up, just some free goodies for your listeners, so that, especially if they're driving in a car and don't have the ability to take notes, that you can just go and download these and have them as something you keep on your phone, or somewhere that's easily accessible.
And I will put that on the write-up for the show, the blog post. So if you go
Great.
to my website or newdirectionshow.com, we'll have that on as a link, live link, that you'll be able to click on as well.
Awesome. That's perfect.
All right, so let's talk about RAIN. Let's make it rain.
Woo! So the RAIN method is going to be for, R for recognize, A for assign, then I for identify, and then number 4 is going to be for navigating. And with this, it's meant to be its own kind of like standalone framework. But as we get to the 4th step of navigate, you can pop in your favorite kind of quick win neuro hacks depending on what works best for you. So as you've seen in the book, I offer a lot of neuro hacks because like everything in the book is something that is going to either be completely free or something really low cost, like the essential oil, but really strong scents, which I do before I go on stage to do a keynote, of getting something really pungent, like like bay or peppermint, and just put a little under your nose so that it really kind of pushes your amygdala to kind of be shocked out of that fear response. But everything, nothing that you would swallow or chew or like things, I wanted it to be as low risk as possible so people could start to play around with these tools.
So recognize, I'm sorry, I would, recognize, you call it the feel it stage.
Yep.
And then let's talk about that real quick.
So being able to just recognize that your body is in a fear arousal. So fear arousal is going to be on a spectrum, everything from mild fear arousal to extreme fear arousal. If you're in the extreme end of that spectrum in any particular moment, you don't really need to kind of question it. But it's that, mild to moderate that we need to start paying attention to the signals our body is telling us. So everyone's going to have a little bit of a different poker tell, if you will. For me, I'm a shoulder scruncher. Like if I have like my shoulders inside of my ears, then I know something's going on and I can get curious about it because there's physical things that are telling me that my amygdala is getting fired up. So kind of figuring out, what is that for you? Is it a racing heart? Is it tummy issues, whatever? Everyone has a little bit different. So kind of figuring out what your tell is. And then moving on to the second is going to be a sign. So the power of this method is in the process itself. And assigning is going to choose just one word from the fear wheel. And you can also download the fear wheel from hellobravenewYou.com as just a individual JPEG, so you can have it on your phone. And in the moment, okay, if you've decided, like for me, my shoulders are like all scrunching, I'm clenching my jaw, then I can ask myself, okay, what is exactly one word to name what I'm feeling right now? And not 2, not 3, but just one. And that's important because through the process of pigeonholing, it relaxes our brain because it gives us a sense of control over feelings and a world that is generally out of control, right? So just choosing that one word and saying, okay, so maybe I'm feeling angst right now, and I'm going to go with that one. Then you're going to move on to that third step, which is going to be identify. And this, now that you have that kind of name for that one feeling, you're not calling it stress, right? You have like one distinct, actual descriptive name. Then you take that curiosity and say, okay, where is this coming from? And if I had to choose, again, you just pick one bucket, even though humans are complex and sometimes a fear could be a little bit of both. But the action of pigeonholing here is going to be important. Where is this sensation, coming from a place of feeling like you're not enough or being afraid of not being enough? Or is it coming from a place of feeling like you're going to lose control, right? And the action of just choosing one of those buckets, many times just these first 3 steps can kick you out of that fear arousal response. And if not, then you just go to that 4th step, which is going to be navigate. So on the card that you can get on the website is, just box breathing, which is a very, well published type of breathing and used by the Navy SEALs, and something really easy to remember. I try to make all my neurohacks as easy to remember, but you can really trade out any of the neurohacks for that box breathing. And for one of them, like pinching the valley, this is one of my favorite ones, where you are going to kind of massage the area between your thumb and your forefinger. So not the webbing part, but like kind of the meaty part. And this activates the vagus nerve that will help to calm your nervous system down. No one knows you're doing it. You're just taking your right hand and taking your thumb and forefinger on your right hand and pitching that area on your left. You can do it left to right as well. And, I always feel an immediate kind of calming sensation when I do this. So this is one of my go-tos. And that navigate step, you can interchange it with whatever neurohacks you find work best for you.
This has been awesome.
It has been.
This has been so much fun. I've really thoroughly enjoyed it. I don't know if you'd ever be open to doing some more deeper diving on this, but I would love to have you come back and do some more deep dives because we didn't even get to that. So tell people what's the best way to get a hold of you, find out more information. I know we've got hellobravenewYou.com. Is there any other way we should get in touch with you?
Yeah, so that will actually take to because my name is hard to spell and it's really long and it has Harry Potter vibes. So the Hello Brave New You will get everyone to my main website that talks about my keynotes, my workshops, the immersive experiences that I do for organizations, in addition to those free goodies as well. And I'm on all social channels at Mary Poffenroth. And now if you did want to be brave and try and spell my name, you could just put marypoffenroth.com, but the Hello Brave New You will get you there as well.
Thanks for being on the show. Stay with me, please. Folks, It's the show. You know what? You're in control of 3 things: your attitude, your effort, and your resiliency. The fact of the matter is life is not always fair. It doesn't always give us things that we always want, but you still can choose to control your attitude. That's within your control. So take control of your attitude, because that is something that you can do. And it can be positive. Not always easy, but it can be positive. And then the second thing is your effort. And your effort's tied to your excellence. We all have so much left in the tank, but how much excellence will you choose today? How excellent will you be? And then the third is resiliency. And we all get punched in the gut and knocked in the teeth, and we get knocked down. But it's up to you to get back up. And we need you to get back up. You want to know why? Because you're worth it, and we want you on the team. I'll be back next week with another great guest. It's going to be another great book. Automatically is another great show. You had a lot of choices. You chose us. I appreciate that. Give us a thumbs up on YouTube. Wherever you listened to the show, give us a 5-star positive review. Tell your friends. We really appreciate it. As I say to you all over the world, you know what that is. Ciao, everybody.